All right, let's move on to the age-old question of whether alt season is coming. And Coinbase says, yes, it is. They see a full-scale alt season brewing with September rotation in sight. So this is a report from Coinbase Institutional, which they released a few days ago, August 14th. It's titled, Alt Season Cometh. It's almost like an Arthur Hayes blog post title.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's a weird look. Coinbase Institutional.
Look. I'm surprised there's no like a misspelling of the word hold in there.
And like maybe the cover images of a Pepe or something. Just like absolutely try hard cringe.
So the firm's global head of research, David Duong, wrote, quote, Our Q3 2025 outlook remains constructive, though our view on altcoin season has evolved. And he added, we think current market conditions now suggest a potential shift toward a full-scale altcoin season as we approach September. So the altcoin season index, for those who are following, it does remain below the key 75-point threshold, but altcoin market cap has risen over 50% since early July, reaching around $1.4 trillion as of the latest numbers that I have, which are just a few days ago or a week ago. Bitcoin's dominance, of course, has declined from its latest peak of 65 to now below 60%, which is a sign that altcoin season is coming. And then Coinbase also points to a record $2.7 trillion parked in U.S. money market funds. And they say they see that as sort of a latent pool of capital that could re-enter the crypto ecosystem if monetary policy becomes more accommodative. And then one last quote from the report. We think Fed easing could unlock greater retail participation in the medium term. So let's discuss this for a minute, but I just preface the discussion with something which, like, look, always question the messenger with these kinds of predictions. Obviously, Coinbase wants an alt season because they'll make a ton of money on trading fees if it happens. So it's in their best interest to be publishing these kinds of reports. But there's other questions around whether alt season will come. One take that it's alt season won't come, like alt seasons we've had in the past, is that the accumulators of ETH are not degen traders. It's like money that's going into what is the I can never remember Tom Lee's company. Yeah, these DATs. That money, when it's in profit, it's not rotating into alts. It's sort of stuck there. It's kind of like dead money, really. And in previous cycles, the wealth effect of people who made a ton on ETH, they then went and like put that into other riskier bets down the curve. So the argument is that that may not happen this time because of the different structure of the market participants.
Yeah, I think that's generally correct, but it's still a better situation than with Bitcoin, would be my take on it, right? Like the people buying Bitcoin are the really stuffy people, and their idea of going out on the risk curve is buying ETH. And then the people who hold a lot of Bitcoin, they tend to not dabble too much into the crypto ecosystem as much as people who hold a lot of ETH would dabble into
exactly.
Right. And so you get this thing where I do think that an increased or an elevated ETH price will have a lot more effect on the rest of the crypto structure than Bitcoin. But yeah. A lot of it won't be like last time, right? It won't be like previous cycles, probably.
And a lot of big ETH bag holders capitulated. I'm not calling myself a whale by any stretch of the imaginations, but I'm one of the capitulators. And the point of that is just to say that, like a lot of crypto natives or whatever aren't necessarily benefiting from the recent like 3x or 2x of ETH.
Yeah.
It's more the DATs, the digital asset treasury companies who bought.
I do think that we will eventually have a proper alt season. For me, the necessary ingredients for that to happen, though, is you really have to have ETH kind of go crazy, and we haven't even breached all-time highs yet, right? We got close.
Yeah,
we flirted with it, But you really want to see ETH enter price discovery like Bitcoin did, right? Bitcoin did that for a while. And until that happens with ETH, we're nowhere. And even if ETH hits all-time high, you'd have to see it kind of then enter price discovery, 5K, 6K, something like that, before I think you see a proper rotation. And that would be my guess. And all the while that this is happening, Bitcoin is still kind of consolidating, you know? And I think at any point, for whatever reason, we're going to have to see, I think it has to happen in the next couple months. I mean, because Bitcoin's been consolidating here for a bit. When Bitcoin starts to really rip, that's going to suck all the liquidity out of the rest of crypto back into Bitcoin for a while. I honestly wouldn't expect a proper altcoin season until Bitcoin rips quite a bit higher, right? Like 150, 200, something like that.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that, you get a proper alt season. But
yeah,
that's just kind of my intuition. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, let's cover our last story of the week here.
Yeah, this is another good story. You can tell that, I think, just before I get into this, I've noticed that Coinbase is they're doing this on purpose, which is trying to get in the headlines with kind of color commentary or analysis about alt seasons. Cometh, Brian Armstrong, has lots of posts like this recently. So they're obviously on their marketing game. And this is, I think, a good example of that. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong compared today's crypto adoption to that moment where Blockbuster and Netflix were in competition. For a lot of you, you're probably not old enough to remember, but there was this like magical time where both of those companies were fighting over market share at the same time. Obviously, Netflix won out massively and Blockbuster is no longer a thing. And so Brian Armstrong thinks that we're kind of in that magic moment where crypto adoption is disrupting traditional finance, right? They're both kind of coexisting because crypto is better technology and more efficient and all these kinds of things. You'll look back maybe in 10, 15, 20 years and it'll just be completely different, which is really what happened with Blockbuster and Netflix, right? For those of us old enough to remember, it's kind of hard to even remember how omnipresent, at least in the United States, Blockbuster was. It was everywhere. And I still remember my parents getting Netflix for the first time, where you got mailed DVDs, and it was kind of like, this is kind of stupid. And then, I mean, look at it today. It's ridiculous. And so it's an interesting analogy, and it's something interesting to mull over. I'll get your thoughts in a moment, Graham, but for me, the important thing here is that, what is that aphorism? It's something like people overestimate too much in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And this Blockbuster versus Netflix framing kind of really encapsulates that, where at the moment when Blockbuster and Netflix were in the market at the same time, it would have been impossible for me to predict what today looks like and what Netflix looks like today, right? Like back when they were mailing DVDs. And then now they're like this major studio that's like paying for movies and stuff like that. And Blockbuster is not a company. And so you could, I mean, if you think about it like that, what could crypto look like 20 years from now? It's really not that long of a time. And it could be the case where crypto is the financial industry and there isn't anything that is non-crypto. So anyway, that's kind of how I looked at this story.
Hearing you summarize this, I start getting, I don't know, starry-eyed dream, what could become, and it's exciting. So this is good marketing from Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong. He'll never be held account to this, so because it's a prediction to 20 years in the future. So, but it's kind of fun to think about.
We're all impatient to make lots of money. But boy, could you have made a ton of money if you had somehow gotten a hold of Netflix, a little bit of Netflix equity back in those days, huh? And just held it for 20 years, right? Like, good God. Holy moly.
So, yeah, I mean, Coin, the stock is potentially a good buy. But, it does beg the question, right? Like that we've talked about quite a bit on this and Token Narratives is like, who's going to be the winner here? Is it going to be businesses like Coinbase, maybe businesses like Robinhood, or is it the incumbents like JP Morgan who are just going to finally make their own chains and just eat everyone else's lunch because they already have the distribution?
I mean, that's the equity play, But I mean, where this differs from the analogy is you also have this new asset that we're all used to, but is still kind of a new thing where it has equity-like upside. I'm talking about Bitcoin and other tokens, but it is also a store of value, a medium of exchange. And so, I mean, the safest bet is to just buy Bitcoin, maybe buy a couple of the major alts like Ethereum or Solana. You will get massive upside on those because the ecosystem kind of revolves around exchanging, transacting those digital assets. And for me, I'm an idiot. I can't really do that future guessing of like, oh, is it going to be Coinbase? Is Coinbase going to be the company in 20 years? I don't know. It's way harder for me to, and I have no intelligent thing to say about that.
Yeah, and of course there's survivorship bias, right? Anyone who put some money on Facebook at the right time is a genius, and anyone who put money in, I don't know, GeoCities, if that was even a company. Or something you could buy in the public markets, they're still poor. Yeah. So you don't hear from them as much.
Yeah. I mean, I would say though, like the advice that you always hear from people at those times is like, you should invest in things that you spend a lot of time on. And man, if I had bought a little Apple stock, because I was the first person I knew who bought Apple products. I had an early iPod before anyone had them. I had an early MacBook before anyone I knew had them. And I loved them, and I proselytized them. I should have bought I'm spending thousands of dollars on this crap. I should have bought $300, $400, $500 of Apple stock, and Google too. I remember using like Ask Jeeves and all that stuff before I found Google really, really early. For crypto products, the things like the exchanges to me seem rather, you can kind of just move between them, I think, pretty easily.
Yeah.
So
not necessarily a big moat for the exchanges.
Yeah, exactly.